Okay, an acronym that you can use to help you remember the names of the different types of triangles is ESI. If you think of CSI, the TV show where they try to do investigations and things, if you think of ESI and we're trying to figure out what kind of triangle it is, E stands for equilateral, S stands for scalene, and I stands for isosceles. And then to help you remember the names of the angles, you can use the acronym OR. O stands for obtuse, A acute, and R right. Sometimes you might be asked to name a triangle, and it has to be either equilateral, scalene, or isosceles, and obtuse, acute, or right. For example, this triangle here has a right angle and a 40-degree angle. So we would have to find the missing angle, which would be 50 degrees, because all three angles have to equal 180 degrees. So it would be a right scalene triangle because it has a 90-degree angle, and it's a scalene triangle because all of the angles are different measures, which means all of the sides of the triangles are different sizes. To solve for the variable in an equation, what you do is you usually do the opposite operation. So for example, if it's 25 times n equals 200, to solve for n, we need to divide each side by 25, or do the opposite of multiplication, which would be division. So 200, and then we have to divide this side by 25. 200 divided by 25 equals 8, so n would equal 8. You can check your work by replacing 8 for n in the equation. 25 times 8 does equal 200. X plus 7 equals 21. To solve for x, and to get x by itself, we're going to subtract 7 from each side, and x would then equal 14, because 21 minus 7 equals 14. If we use 14 in place of x, 14 plus 7 does equal 21. 15 minus n equals 8. If we just subtract 8 from 15 and get 7, and use 7 in place of n, 15 minus 7 equals 8. And the same for 300 minus n equals 20. If we subtract 20 from 300, we get 280. 300 minus 280 equals 20. Stating whether the following inequalities are true or false. When you have a statement like this, you need to solve it and find out if it's true or false. So this says 9 times 4 is less than 12 plus 5. We need to solve. 9 times 4 equals 36, and 12 plus 5 equals 17. 36 is less than 17 is false. So this inequality would be false. 3 times 10 is less than or equal to 5 times 6. We have to find out and solve. 3 times 10 is 30. 5 times 6 is 30. 30 is less than or equal to 30. That is true. So this inequality would be true. The associative property for multiplication is where you change the grouping of the factors, and that will not change your answer. So for example, if we have the parentheses to group 5 times 4 times 2 equals, we can change the parentheses and where they're located and change the grouping so that it's 5 times 4 times 2. No matter what way they're grouped, you're going to come up with the same answer. The distributive property is multiplying a number by a group of numbers added together, and that's the same as doing each multiplication separately. So for example, 5 times, in parentheses, b plus 2 is the same as taking 5 times b and adding it to 5 times 2. The identity property is the property or answer in multiplication, and 1 is the original number. So for example, 7 times 1 equals 7, or a times 1 equals a. Whatever number you have times 1 is going to equal that number. That is the identity property. Commutative property, you can multiply numbers or factors in any order and still come up with the same product. So for example, 5 times 3 equals 15. and 3 times 5 equals 15. You're going to come up with the same product no matter what order they are in. To complete the order of operations, we have to remember to use the acronym, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, PEMDAS. So first, P stands for parentheses, E stands for exponents, M, multiplication, D, division, A, addition, S, subtraction. First thing we need to do is the parentheses. So 9 minus 3 equals 6. Then we need to rewrite the equation. And then the next thing we need to do is the exponents. 3 to the second power is 9. So now we have 6 times 5 minus 2 plus 6 plus 9. Then we need to do multiplication. 6 times 5 is 30, so we now have 30 minus 2 plus 6 plus 9. And then we need to do the addition and subtraction if there is any. So 28 plus 6 plus 9, I brought it over here. 28 plus 6 equals 34 plus 9. And 34 plus 9 equals 43. And lastly, tree diagrams. Here's an example. A dice numbered 1 to 4 is rolled and 1 coin is tossed. Draw a tree diagram to represent the possible outcomes. So D stands for dice. There are 4 numbers, 1 through 4 on the dice. And then the coin, we have 1 coin. There's one side that is heads and one side that is tails. So if we rolled the dice and the coin, the possible outcomes would be to roll the dice, the number 1, and to roll heads, and 1, and tails. Number 2, we could roll the number 2. There could be a 2 in heads, 2 in tails. 3, 3 heads, 3 tails. 4, the number 4 in heads, and 4 tails. The coin has heads and tails. You could roll heads and the number 1 on the dice, heads and the number 2 on the dice, heads and the number 3, and heads and the number 4, and same for tails. Tail and the number 1, tail and the number 2, tails and the number 3, and tails and the number 4. Be sure to have taken notes and to have written down any questions if you have any.